Alright, we're back up in the assumptions section of the model. And if you recall, in the assumptions section, we finished everything except the goodwill and purchase price allocation. Now that we've put in the historical balance sheet, we can calculate this. First, we're going to do some linking of book value items. So for cash, we're going to go down to the balance sheet and we're going to take the cash balance from there. Then we're going to link the accounts receivable balance. Next is inventory. As you can see, we're just going down the balance sheet and grabbing all the assets. Next is property, plant, and equipment. There is no existing goodwill for this company, and there are no intangibles, but if there were intangibles, they would go there. So the identifiable assets then is this number right here, 88 million. Now that we have the book value here, we need to input the fair market value of these assets as they are presently. For cash, we're going to set it equal to book value because there's no adjustment required for cash, of course. And then on these other items, we're going to have to go to the raw data file for the case study and get these fair values here. So these were provided for us. These we're going to take as given that these assets were valued, and we can take these as being given. So you can see that accounts receivable was actually reduced a bit, sort of written down a little bit, perhaps due to some doubtful accounts. Inventory, perhaps there was some older aged inventory, and so the market value was reduced. But on the property, plant, and equipment side, you can see that the value perhaps of some of the land or other assets has actually increased, and we're going to mark it up. So there we have the total, and identifiable intangibles is 0 since the company has no intangibles. So we can sum that up, and now we can calculate the adjustment. So the adjustment is simply going to be the fair value minus the book value. Remember, this is the amount that we need to adjust any of the assets by to calculate goodwill. Let's paste that down as a formula. And then we can fill the sum formula to the right with Control R, and we have the total adjustments. So these total adjustments are going to change the balance sheet. We're actually going to create an account for goodwill here and drive the closing balance sheet for this transaction. So let's move over now to the purchase price allocation, and we can calculate those values now. Okay, so we closed the raw data file since we don't need that information anymore. Let's fill in this purchase price allocation table now. Let's start by bringing forward the total purchase price. So the total purchase price, we can just scroll up and grab right here. The total purchase price is this total consideration. Let's add to that any stock consideration that might be included. So we get 190 million. The net book value of assets we can calculate straight from the balance sheet by taking the total assets and subtracting the total liabilities. So what we've got here is the total purchase price, which is an equity value for the business. And then we've got the net book value of assets, which is also an equity value of the business. So what we're saying is if the book value of the business is 69 million and the price we paid for the business is 190, there's obviously this excess purchase price. So we can take the actual purchase price, deduct the book value, and we get this excess here. And that's what's going to drive the goodwill calculation. So we can just type 0 here for existing goodwill write-off, since there is no existing goodwill. And then we can link here the fair value adjustments to the identifiable assets. And then what we can calculate below is the excess purchase price after adjustments. That's going to be equal to the excess purchase price minus the removal of any existing goodwill minus any fair value adjustments. So we get 112 649 here. And then that is equal to the goodwill. So that's what's going to go on the balance sheet now as goodwill for this business. One last finishing touch that we can do here is if we scroll up in the assumptions, we wanted to make these dynamic instead of being hard-coded. So we're going to link Retail Co's debt to its balance sheet now that we have that here. So let's make sure we pick up any short-term debt and any long-term debt. So we've done that. And then let's link the cash to the balance sheet as well. That way there's only one place we have to make changes and everything will flow through. And then we can unhighlight those and leave them as black since they're formulas. So now the assumptions section is 100% complete.